Our speaker today is Mervyn
Meyer. Yeah.
Meyer, marriage and family therapist, and he's been licensed for 34 years. He worked in many counseling domains, including private nonprofit agencies, residential treatment, and private practice. His instructional experience includes providing workshops and trainings for parents and professionals. He's been a community college instructor and is currently a consultant to professionals and couples. He is humanistic, existentially based, integrating an attachment model that is both experientially and emotionally focused. Mervyn has been training with Dan Hughes since 2004 and is a certified Dyadic developmental psychotherapist. He is currently working on certification in EFT for couples. In addition to attachment issues, Mervyn has specific expertise in trauma, anxiety, depression, ADHD, learning difficulties, anger management, and spectrum disorders. Welcome.
Thank you. So am I on?
Yes.
Okay. Kind of interesting walking around with this little appendage here. I hope it doesn't hurt my sciatic stuff. So if I start limping like this, Hal's going to help support me, lift me up. Okay, so a couple of things that I'd like to just refer to that unfortunately I didn't catch when I had sent in my bio. And first of all, I've got a new telephone number. Okay, which is here, which you also find on the handout, if everybody got a handout. And I've got away from the AT&T evil empire, so I'm now using Google Voice. And you get to pick your own number, or close to it as possible. So the last 3 digits stand for Attachment Focused Therapy 238. And then my new email address is the same as before, only instead of att.net, it's sonic.net. And I also want to just make a couple of other corrections. What was mentioned in terms of my working towards EFT certification, I've kind of put that on hold as I'm in the process of working on being a certified consultant for Dyadic developmental psychology, which is a mouthful here. And by the way, those of you who think you're here for didactic developmental psychology, you can all leave now because we're not going to be talking about that. Hal did make the correction. So,
Mervyn,
yes.
Before we start, are there any more of your handouts floating around?
There's some handouts here. Here. That's all right. Here you go.
I'll put the extra on the back here.
And I will mention that since part of this, just a small part will be interactive here, if you don't have a pen or a pencil on you, I did bring some. My wife encouraged me to get my name printed on them and telephone number, but I didn't have time to do that. So does anybody need any pens? Okay. Right. So let me just pull up my notes here for a second. Oh, I know what I also wanted to, it was a question that I have. Anybody out there planning on going to Laura Parnell's attachment and EMDR? Maybe we can talk and we can figure out transportation, because I plan to do that. I've seen her before, and she's not to be missed. She's really good. Okay. So my private practice is on Sodiomi Street. I've been working as a psychotherapist, marriage and family therapist. Actually, now it's almost 38 years. It will be next week, rather than the 34 that was mentioned. It's a little difficult my mentioning that. But I've been doing this for a good long time, and my work has transformed over the many years. But I've always seen myself as generally emotionally focused. And so when I came across Dan Hughes's work over 10 years ago, I decided this was something that I wanted to really involve myself in. And so I have, I've really, jumped in with both feet. And I think it's really, it's been a very important and valuable experience for me. I'm currently, I was just recently nominated, voted in to be on the board for DDP, which is Dyadic Developmental Psychology in the Institute. And so if anybody has any questions about that later on, and I can talk about training and trainings that are happening, then we can go ahead and do that. So in my practice, I see kids, adolescents, and their families, and that's predominantly, probably about 60 to 65% of my client population. The other 35 to 40% are adults. I'm seeing adults individually and couples, and all from an attachment model and attachment base here. So I think that kind of gives everybody a somewhat of an idea of my orientation and where I come from. So I just wanted to mention, so there's a plug also for a home within. How many of you know what a home within is? Okay, well, very few of you. Oh, that's good. That's good. So I'm speaking to a fresh audience about this. I'm a consultant with a home within, and a home within, which used to be formerly Fostering Connections, which was formerly a home within before that. It's confusing. And what it is, it's an organization that provides counseling services for kids and adolescents, sometimes young adults, who are going through the foster care system. As most of you, probably are aware of, these particular kids that are in foster care, they may have been in or will be in multiple homes. Likelihood that they're actually, it's not even the likelihood, it always happens this way, but they may go through many different social workers, behavioral therapists, but their life is full of people sort of moving in and out. And when we talk about attachment, that's exactly the opposite of what these young people need. So here in the county, we offer, as well as this is nationwide, a home within, offer pro bono therapy. So if you were so inclined or interested, you could take on a foster child, and the exchange for that is, because it's pro bono, the exchange for that is getting consultation, and we have 4 consultants, which I'm one of, that provide consulting services to those that are working with kids in the foster care system. It's heart work. It's heart work, and these kids need it, so I just want to put in a big plug for that. So if anybody is at all interested, let me know later on. I'll put you in touch with a coordinator. So DDP, or Dyadic Developmental Psychology, which is a mouthful, is worldwide, and there's about 46 certified clinicians throughout the US, Canada, the UK, and also Finland. And there's about another 20 or so people that are in the process of taking the practicum to become certified. And this is fairly new. Actually, most of these people have been certified within the last 3 years. And so this is really something that's been up and coming. We also have 12 certified consultants and 11 certified trainers. We don't have any certified agencies right now, but there's about 4 to 5 agencies that have contacted or are interested in getting started in this arena. So also, again, I'll mention, if anybody is at all interested in what the approach is to, or the process to get certified in dyadic developmental psychology, then you can contact me, and I'll direct you in the right direction here. So this is Dan Hughes's model, which Dan Hughes probably most people were introduced to Dan Hughes through his first book, which was called Building the Bonds of Attachment. And Dan has been working with this particular model for about the last 20 years. I think in your bibliography I have most, I would say most, because Dan seems to be coming out with a book a couple of times a year, some that he does in connection with other people, but I have a list of them there. So Dan initially put this together to treat foster and adopted kids. And so this particular approach has been since expanded to work with all families. In fact, families in which birth parents are involved too and are parenting their children. DDP is strongly based in attachment theory and research, and also borrows from the principles of post-traumatic stress disorder as well too. And it's really truly an attachment-focused family therapy model. And it's an integrative approach which integrates tools from, for example, Rogerian emotionally focused, narrative, cognitive behavioral therapy, psychodrama, you name it. It includes it. And so some of you may ask, well, why attachment? Okay, why is this model based in the whole theory and idea of attachment? Well, it's because we need attachment with others for our neurological, cognitive, behavioral, emotional, and social development. Okay, without those kinds of connections, those parts of us don't develop properly. Without our ability to have an attachment figure or attachment figures that can help us make us feel safe and secure, then it's hard to then imagine really being a fully functioning human being. Schaefer and Cassidy tell us that it reflects a body of research that both extends from infancy to old age and also influences development and functioning of most areas of human activity. Stephen Porges, who's a neurobiologist, says that the perception of safety is the turning point in the development of relationships. Deborah Gray, who I have her book on there, it's called Nurturing Adoptions, states that attachment promotes emotional regulation, provides resilience, and affords support in overcoming life's difficulties. So we now know that attachment doesn't end at 24 months of life. Okay, our need for attachment continues throughout the lifespan, our connection with people. So the whole concept of the Marlboro Man, who was riding off, and he has nobody around him or connected, it's just he and his cigarettes. Okay, and maybe the cows. That's not true. And we know that as human beings, and this is why we congregate together. That's why we're all here today. We like being around and connected and centered with people. So attachment is important through our survival in life. Sue Johnson, whose EFT work most of you know, tells us that it's a safe haven, again talking about attachment, that offers a buffer against the effects and stress and uncertainty. Alan Shore, neurobiologist and researcher and very dense writer, tells us that proximity, which attachment is based upon proximity, proximity to a loved one tranquilizes the nervous system. Okay? We won't be talking much about models of attachment style here today, secure and insecure attachment, as I do in sort of beginning talk about attachment, but just to let people know that it's been noted that probably pretty close to 70% of the population is securely attached. Okay? Now, I see faces going, whoa, that's kind of amazing. That's not our experience, is it? That's not the people that we're necessarily working with. Okay? But that's kind of an interesting perspective to have, that 70% of the population is securely attached. And well, Well, I just want to bring up an example here. I have a fairly young couple that I'm seeing that came to me for the processes of parenting as well as some coupling kinds of issues, and they they had developed a very nice and sweet relationship. They're just a lovely, lovely couple to deal with. And the interesting thing was that one of the partners of the couple, the man, was really had come from although he couldn't articulate it in this particular way, really came from a anxious, ambivalent sort of attachment position. His mother was probably the classic sort of preoccupied parent, which oftentimes gives rise to that particular attachment style, being anxiously attached. Well, one of the ways that he sort of purported or actually acted out that level of anxiety in that was he was a clean freak, and it's like he would get very anxious when things were, out of place and things weren't clean and all that kind of thing. And here he is, a man with a child and taking in another child and another woman. It's like, oh my God, what's going to happen here? And the woman that he is with is securely attached. And the interesting thing here is over time and the amount of time that they've been together, and he feels the love, the support, the care, which translates into a sense of security and safety for him, that his clean freakness has taken a back seat. So what does that mean? So it means that being next to someone who's securely attached can help us, and to help us to become securely attached. And so that's really important to keep in mind, and certainly one of the most important things that I think about in relationship to dyadic developmental psychology and also working with parents, and we'll talk more about that. So DDP, which if you forget what that stands for, I won't feel offended, but if you have a question about that, I'll let you know. DDP is really the basic present-centered, experiential, and emotionally focused therapy. DDP's approach helps to activate those parts in our brain which need to be activated for attachment to happen. Okay, Bruce Perry, has anybody ever seen Bruce Perry? Yeah, he's a interesting guy, good speaker. Bruce Perry tells us that emotional reactivity and affiliation and attachment really happen through the interactive process with a caregiver and an infant's midbrain and limbic system. Okay, and these parts have to be in conjunction and working together for attachment to occur. So this kind of gives rise to one of my pet peeves is that trying to teach attachment through means of cognitive behavioral therapy doesn't happen, doesn't work. Okay, and so it's important. It doesn't say that can't be an important part, and certainly when you're dealing with a teenager, which that part, and we know that the prefrontal cortex is developing all the way up to 25 years of age, that you can't involve that part, but it really happens from those other parts, which are the emotional connections that we have with people. So the first element that I want to talk about related to DDP is the intersubjective experience. Now we talk about intersubjectivity as being really an essential role and important in terms of attachment security and just a vital part of DDP. Whereas attachment describes the whole idea and concept of safety, what intersubjectivity describes is really the manner in which we learn about our world. We learn about ourselves, we learn about our family, we learn about the larger community and the culture. And Dan says it represents the fundamental interpersonal activity that exists within all relational bonds. Intersubjectivity, related specifically to DDP, is the primary here and now, you and me experience in which we're both in the process of sharing and joining in attention as well as similar affect, intention, and meaning. It's really, if you can imagine, it's the dance of two partners. And I think I may have mentioned this 3 years ago when I gave a presentation, use this example. But you have to imagine that whether you're doing a swing dance or you're doing, I'm talking about classic swing, not the Western swing. A swing, I'm dating myself, swing dance or a tango, that you have to do it with a partner because it doesn't work if you don't have a partnership that's going on there. That's the relationship of intersubjectivity, is really joining in intention, meaning, and affect with that individual. The second element has to do with attunement. We need attunement, which really is match vitality affect, to facilitate this intersubjective experience, okay? And this can be happening verbally and or non-verbally, okay, this kind of attachment. Dan Siegel, which there's probably been a lot of people out there that have seen Dan Siegel speak or read his books, talks about a parent repeatedly matches the vitality of their infant's nonverbal expressions. And they follow rhythm, beat, intensity, duration, contour, and shape of expressions. I may have left some of those things blank for you to write in if you want to. And how this happens is through the parents, the caregiver's senses. Eye contact, facial expression, gestures, movement, voice tone, timing, and touch. Oh, look at this cute little baby here. Oh, he's so sweet. You know, and just kind of bringing them close and reflecting also what's going on with that particular infant as well, too. If they're, raising their hands, then the parents raising their hands. If they're pointing, the parents pointing, and all of that. Have some of you seen the, what is it? I want to say it's the blank stare experiment. Yeah. And that's kind of an interesting experience because you have a parent that is interacting on this way from a very intersubjective and attuned way and is just really connecting with this child. And then this parent has been instructed to turn around like this. And when she comes back, blank stare. Blank stare. And so the experience is that the child goes through the machinations of trying to, connect with mom and is cooing and laughing and, making sounds and hand movements and all of that. And then after a while, the child begins to dysregulate. Why? Because they're not being attuned with at that moment. And they're feeling that loss of connection and how vital that is. And so you see that child extremely, dysregulate, and the arm movements start to get, bigger, and the sounds get louder, and all of that. So it's very profound. Fortunately, the mom goes back to attunement, and that baby gets regulated. Okay, so attunement is extremely important in terms of driving this process of intersubjectivity, and it's true as well as therapists that we look at this too. I want to read an Alan Shore quote, okay? And this is a good example of the denseness, and I'll try and translate. Alan Shore says that the insecurely attached infants that never got maternal neural imprinting to help regulate their nervous system were bound to have inconvenient and uncontrollable storms of unpleasant feelings throughout their lifetime without neurobiological, psychological repair from an attuned therapist ready to meet them emotionally where they were via nonverbal affect mediating right brain to right brain communication to help undertake that kind of effective makeover. I think what he's trying to say is essentially without attunement, they'll stay messed up. Okay? Okay? So, what's that?
And they need good therapy.
And they need good therapy and good therapists, absolutely.
And who was that again?
That's Alan Shore. And I think I have his book listed in the bibliography there if anybody wants to delve into it. Sort of like delving into esoteric psychology, you know. So along with this, the nonverbal attunement is also the verbal attunement, and you know, I've been around for a long time doing this particular work, and I was raised predominantly or trained in this Rogerian kind of approach. And so if a client would come in and say, "God, I'm just really upset and angry," I would sit back and say, "Oh, so I hear you're really angry." You know, like that. And you know, I hear some groans over here, but that was really of the time, that was sort of to have that neutral kind of experience in it, although you might be reflective, and being reflective of the particular client that you were working with, it didn't necessarily connect on an emotional kind of level with them to where they really felt understood, heard, that they were being held and supported and nurtured in that. So the DDP therapist is aware of the intensity, the tone, the rhythm, the beat, the tempo, and all of these are reflected. The third element that we talk about, I'm calling them elements. Dan doesn't necessarily do that. I'm just saying elements. Third element is co-regulation of affect. And this is really the therapist's job to regulate affect, because if you think about it, anyone in the session is actively dysregulated, then it's unlikely that the family members are going to feel safe enough to talk about those stressful kinds of themes. So this is important, you know, because kids and family members that have and express intense affect, such as rage or terror, despair, pervasive shame, it's likely that they will not feel alone if there's a therapist that's there willing to match them, willing to be attuned with them, okay? And so that's something, and we'll do a little exercise around this in a minute or two here. So that's something that's very important. In working with families, that I do, my general procedure is like to have the parents come in, parents come in for 5 to 10 minutes. Sometimes it extends a little bit longer than that, depending upon what's on the table, to talk about, you know, current issues that may be going on. But most of the time, what I'm really doing is looking to see whether or not that particular parent is in the place of being able to provide what is needed for their children in that shape. And so I'm trying to assess for that. I had, many years ago, I had a parent come in, and she was just really, really angry. And she was, you know, her son was not performing up to the level that she thought he should be academically. And, you know, she saw him as being lazy and disconnected and, you know, just withdrawing and all that. Sounds like a teenager, doesn't it? And so she was just over the moon with this anger. And so I tried working with her for, you know, several minutes to see if I could help to regulate her, to sort of quiet things down so she might be there and available for her son. And there was no way. I just wasn't able to regulate her, so I excused her from the session. And we ended up just seeing the boy, because to put this young man in session with his mom at that time, she would have torn his throat out, you know, and that was not what was needed.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
How old was the boy?
He was 15 at the time.
And what if the boy wanted mom to stay in the session?
That would have been okay. And so what I would have had to do would have been to monitor, you know, what was going on, and I would have had to do probably a lot of interrupting. And if she was not willing to tolerate that, and that's also what I tell parents as I'm beginning to work with them, that I will be doing interrupting, stopping them, directing them as well too. That if she wasn't willing to respond, then I would have excused her. And in those particular cases, most of the kids he knew where his mom was at. He knew that she was, burning with anger, and so he didn't want to put himself in harm's way of that. Yeah. So you have to feel that out case by case. I often say to parents that they've got to be able to manage whatever their kids throw at them, because that's one of the things that children really want to know is no matter what it is that's going on, that their parents will handle it. And handle it means that they won't dysregulate, that they'll stay safe, they'll stay secure, and all of that. And if you've ever dealt with or currently dealing with foster and adopt kids, okay, that is an increasing challenge that happens as a part of the relationship between the caregiver and the child. So I'm gonna have you guys do an exercise right now. So take the last part of the back side of your paper there. And this exercise, the being with exercise, comes from the work that's been developed probably over the last 25 years for the Circle of Security. And any of you familiar with Circle of Security? Okay, one. All right, Brenda. Okay, hey, Kelly. Circle Security, they've just come out with a book, and the people who developed this, and actually it's wonderful. It's really almost a primary kind of thing for new parents and learning about attachment and attachment relationships. As therapists, you actually have to go to a 5-day training. And we have 2 people in our community that are trained in this area. So if you're looking for somebody to work with new parents, infants, very, very young ones, and that, contact Judy Firamonte or Deborah Medansky. So anyways, this exercise comes from the Circle of Security folks there. And what I want you to do is draw a circle. You can title it Being With if you want. Make it a kind of a big circle for yourself. And then in one of the corners, put down these particular feelings: joy, anger, shame, fear, sadness, and curiosity. So what I want you to do is those of you who are parents, okay, I want you to imagine yourself as a parent and what these feelings, each one of these feelings, to look at them and ask yourself, which one of these feelings am I comfortable being with my child? Now, if you're not a parent, think about this in relationship to yourself and or your clients, okay? And if you need to, those parents, if you need to project yourself back into the past when your children were younger, before they were out of the household, then do that. So, for example, you might put joy right in the circle. You might put fear right in the circle. You might put curiosity. Curiosity partially in and partially out. You might put sadness totally outside of the circle here. So just go ahead and do this, and I'll mention my experience in growing up with with my mother. I think I was probably, basically the typical sort of curiosity kind of kid that would always ask, his mother why, why this, why that, why this, why that. Well, my mother, who was not very securely attached, she was very preoccupied. This dysregulated her. It made her uncomfortable. She didn't know what to do with all of this, and she became very intolerant of my asking all these questions. Why, and she didn't know what to do. So, my mother, who back in the day, like a lot of people, thought the doctor was closest to God, and so she went to my pediatrician, which I absolutely loved, and said, "What do I do? What do I do? He's always asking me why, and I just don't know what to tell him, And so he says, "Tell him Dr. Bernberg said so." And so from that point forward, my mother would say, "Dr. Bernberg said so." That's right, Dr. Bernberg said so. And so that was a way of squelching my curiosity, and I've had to work very hard in my life to uncover that and to make that a part of my being with, okay? And I think shame is one of those. For example, I think that for a lot of people may sit outside the circle, okay? Because that's one that's a difficult feeling. In fact, even as therapists, it may be something that doesn't even come to our consciousness in terms of, oh, this might be what's happening when a client goes like this, that they're experiencing shame as they're telling you about a certain kind of incident in that. So anyways, this is just for your own personal kind of experience, and what you want to do with it, is certainly up to you. If you feel like sharing it with anybody. Actually, we can just take a moment or two. I don't know if anybody wants to be that forward and kind of share what their experience was doing this or not. Okay. All right. Yeah, Gail.
I had shame right on the edge and underlined. It's important, but I didn't want to make a big thing of it, either his shame or my
Right.
shame. But I'm willing to own it, when it's in my face. And
Right.
I need to.
Right.
I wish I didn't have to.
But you wish you didn't have to.
It's important that I didn't want to make a big thing of it, but it's still.
Yeah, but what a good mom that you allowed that even to be there and be, available. Because I think that, some parents, and if any of you have ever seen, the video of, you hear the baby crying, but you only see the mother's face because the video is just focusing on the mom, the photography work, and the baby's crying, dysregulated, and the mom's sitting there with a puppet going, "Oh, Mommy has such a hard time when you cry and that. Oh, wouldn't you like to smile? Wouldn't you like to smile? Come on here." So what are we teaching? What are we teaching through this particular process? Mommy cannot be with your sadness, okay? And so this is important. This is important in terms of our work with parents and working with the families. It's also important to look at, and have self-reflection through our own work and ask ourselves, is there something that I'm uncomfortable being with? And acknowledge that. Acknowledge it as a liability, and something that you may choose to work on as a way of being with people. Lonnie.
I just wanted to share that if I'm doing this for my relationship with my infant child, it's very different than if I'm doing it for my relationship with my husband.
Uh-huh.
To bring in different relationships, I am able to view as different pieces.
That's right. That's right. And that's, something to look at, isn't it? Yeah. 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 It is interesting. So self-reflection is really the key in meeting and regulating those that we work with. The fourth element is co-creation of new meanings. Dan says, and I'll quote him here, "Too often with families that come into therapy, that stressors, conflicts, trauma, failures, or separations are not able to be adequately given intersubjective meaning. The therapist's task is to search under the presenting problems. The presenting problems would be, oh, my kid won't pick up their dirty clothes. God, they won't even throw them in the laundry basket. I've made that available to them for years, and they still won't do it. Okay, that's example. Okay, and so as a therapist's job is to help families find new meaning within these kind of problems. Underneath this statement, I just took a few things that I've heard my parents say and sort of put them in one large kind of sentence. I feel disrespected. I feel like I'm losing control. I feel inept and ineffective. How am I going to help my child to be ready for the future? My parents never helped me. I'm an awful parent. And usually this is what's beneath that. And to look at, sort of the presenting problem as only your first step, and to help to coach your parents in working with them to find new meaning. Now, especially working with foster and adopt kids, memories and affective states and attachment histories of the parent and the child are really included as a part of the work here. And when I'm working with adoptive kids, of course, one of the central themes is being given up, and you're not given up, you're not good enough. If you're not good enough, and of course, we know from looking at attachment security, their insecurity, that there is a sense of feeling of being worthless and unlovable. And so, if they're saying something close to that to their adoptive parent, in relationship to them, to help them look at their history as a way of developing a coherent narrative there to kind of look at, well, gosh, that makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Being able not to minimize, but to really help them to understand, that makes perfect sense, because look at what happened to you over here. The fact that you're not kind of trusting that this person will love you, take care of you, or won't give you up. That makes perfect sense. So bringing those attachment history experiences into the meaning of the work. All right, the fifth element is PACE. Okay, and PACE stands for playfulness, acceptance, curiosity, and empathy. And you will find this throughout all of Dan's writings. He talks about these four, how do I want to call them, attitudes. These four attitudes that help to activate the intersubjective process here. And it really enables all the members of the dyad and triad to really have a transformative impact upon one another. So we're not just talking about the therapist being involved and working from this position of PACE, but we're also talking about all of the family members working from this particular experience, and especially offering this and teaching this to parents. Now, playfulness is a stance that's associated in terms of the world of attachment, in terms of with a sense of safety, okay, and leads to states of really friendship and connection. As a therapist, I want to include a playful attitude in the session. I mean, that's who I am. I like doing that, and that's one of the reasons that this PACE really resonates with me. And I think what it does in terms of the sessions with whether you're working with parents or kids, even adolescents, is that it helps to let people know that all of therapy isn't around stressful themes, that there can be some lightness. So I'm into joining kids when they come up, and I'm observing, oh, look at those shoes there. Oh, wow, those are so cool. When did you just get those? Ah, yeah, I hadn't seen those before. Oh, those are really neat. Huh, that's nice. Oh, and if it's a younger kid, oh, show me your boo-boos. Oh, okay. Oh, look at that, Hal. Oh, you got a boo-boo there. How'd you get that? Oh, yeah, did your mommy kiss that, make it feel all better? Yeah, no. Oh. So as a way of engaging and connecting, and also knowing that there may be times for a break in the session in which a child may need to take a break, and I may mention this a little bit later, but you may have a child who needs to take a break from the intensity of this session, and their way of taking a break may be saying no. Like, no, I won't answer that. And so you say, oh, okay, all right, no, I can say that too. Let's see how many times together we can say no. And then, it's no, 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 that old thing that you did as a kid, and so that develops a lightness within that and allows for, humor and that playfulness to come into the session and be very, very valuable.